And they're posting it to the website now so that everybody can link on and join. Give us a minute to do that.
Yep.
All right, Tracy, you should be getting it.
Okay. Okay, let me refresh and verify that it's up. Yep, good to go.
All right.
Okay. Good morning. A meeting of the Louisiana State Board of Medical Examiners Occupational Therapy Advisory Committee pursuant to lawful notice is duly convened and called to order at 10:34 a.m. Friday, September 16th, 2022 via Zoom virtual video. Please note any comments by the public are welcome and can be emailed to publiccomment@lsbme.la.gov. Dr. Van, please confirm that you have verified the identity of all tele and video conference participants.
To the best of my knowledge, we have identified everybody.
Okay, and is everyone sound clear and audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. All additions to the executive or public agenda must be made presently, as we'll no longer make additions to the agenda after the close of the public session. Ingrid, do you have a list of the members present?
I do.
Okay. And it looks like we have two guests today, Emily Green and Kimberly Sullivan. Is that correct?
I think we also have Elizabeth Duncan.
Okay. And
Kimberly Sullivan.
yep, and Emily Green, right?
Emily Green. Yes.
Okay. And can we confirm that we have a quorum, please?
Yes, we do have a quorum.
Okay, great. Okay, just quickly, I'm going to review the mission of the Occupational Therapy Advisory Committee, which is ultimately to protect the public, that is the consumers of occupational therapy, by regulating competent practice and upholding the standard set forth by the governing rules and regulations. So we're going to move on to the agenda item of old business and looking at the minutes from the meeting on August 19th, 2022, respectfully submitted by Ingrid Frank. Has everyone had a second to look over the minutes? Would someone like to make a motion that the minutes be approved as written?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Okay, is that Amy?
Yes.
Okay, would someone like to second it?
I'll second. This is Brenda.
Thank you, Brenda. Anyone opposed? Okay. And is there any public comment for the minutes?
I'll check right now. One moment, please.
I don't see any right now, Dr. Van.
I don't see, let me see. No, we have no public comment at this time.
Okay, we'll move on to the agenda item of the interpretation of the law and the Medicaid billing. So this was discussed briefly at the last meeting, and we have the guest of Emily Green, Elizabeth Duncan, and Ms. Kimberly Sullivan to discuss this. So this was brought to our attention that there was legislation being proposed to allow occupational therapists to have direct access to practice in the school setting. Ingrid and I attended the meeting virtually on August 24th. That was at Adams and Reese and in Baton Rouge to discuss the proposed legislation for the direct access in the school system. And in that meeting, we invited the guests to attend. However, I did receive an email from Jennifer Lucky on Wednesday that I did not read until yesterday that stated that since their last meeting and with discussion between Emily Green and Elizabeth Duncan, their proposed statement from the OTAC committee to allow for direct access in the school was discussed with the Department of Education, which informed them that they would not recognize anything other than a change to the Practice Act to allow the OTs to practice in the school system with direct access. So basically what they were trying to do is perhaps get a statement or some clarification of the interpretation of the law that would possibly allow the OTs to practice in the for education related services, which would possibly be a way to allow Medicaid to bill for services in the school system without a referral. But based on the information that they received from the Department of Education, they have indicated that they do not attempt to move forward with the direct access in the schools. And the legislative team from the Louisiana OT Association has spoken with Jenny Damiano, who was the original author of the legislation, and notified her.
I'm
So-
sorry, who has notified Jennifer Damiano, who was the author?
The LOTA president,
LOTA.
Jennifer Lucky, yes. So she was also in on that meeting. So we were just trying to figure out a way to do it without opening the Practice Act, but it looked like after they spoke to people at the Department of Education that the only way that it would be allowed would be to open our Practice Act. So at that point, they said that they were not going to pursue that.
Darby, if I might ask a question,
Of course.
on the basis of the Practice Act, section 3003 4A, where it defines occupational therapy, it clearly states that the occupational therapist may enter a case for purposes of providing consultation and indirect services and evaluating an individual for the need of services, period. Prevention, wellness, and education-related services shall not require a referral. So I'm trying to figure out what you're going to change in the act that's not already there.
I think they were trying to, I think the issue was really more with the Department of Education and the state plan amendment that clearly states that no prescription is needed for physical therapy and speech therapy, but does not state for occupational therapy, and that they were trying to get the direct access, but then once they spoke with them, that the only way to do that would be to change the Practice Act, and at this time, they're not going to pursue that.
Who you use the they kind of loosely. So who is the they that started this, and who's the they that's not going to proceed?
The they that started it would be, from my understanding, is Jenny Damiano,
Uh-huh.
and also that meeting was the president of LOTA. And so I think they together agreed that it's not worth opening the Practice Act to get direct access in the school system.
Okay. I mean, did anybody bother to send them the Practice Act to read that section 4A of 3003?
Yes, Ingrid and I both brought that up in the meeting, both the Practice Act and the rules and regulations. They felt like it was an interpretation, but it was not recognized by, apparently it was not recognized by the Department of Education.
Well, okay. No, I can't say anything else other than it's in the statute and they didn't like the way it is.
I think Elizabeth has something to say.
I was going to see if I could comment. And it's really not the Department of Education. It's the way that the OTs or what they're doing in the educational setting is not just educational and indirect services, that they are providing direct medically necessary services and they're receiving reimbursement from CMS, and CMS, because they do not reimburse for educational activities, and OTs are providing direct clinical therapy within schools, that yes, they can provide educational consultation, but that doesn't negate the need for the fact because the practice as says they need a physician's referral for direct services. The way it reads, that they would continue to need that in order to receive reimbursement from Medicaid services. And the school systems rely on that funding from CMS to pay for their salaries for their OTs that are working in the schools. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, I guess it makes sense because you just basically quoted the law. And the law does say that if they're providing direct services, not just educational evaluations and education related services, but this is now therapy then it would have to be prescribed by a doc. I mean, I think that's really, I'm trying to figure out how we split the difference in what they're saying and what you want. What is it that we're seeking by, are we seeking to allow the OT to do prescribed therapy? Or are we seeking the OT to determine therapy and then provide that therapy?
From what I understand, Jenny was asking within the legislation to do the evaluation and authorize the services instead of requiring a physician to authorize the service. That's what I was understanding from y'all's meeting, and I wasn't there, so y'all can correct me, but that, and I believe there are several states that she brought up that have changed their practice act that allow direct services without a physician's referral, specifically only in the educational setting. Is that correct, Darby?
Yes, that's according to her research, that there are states that allow direct access in the school system, and it specifically states in the school system. However, ours does not. Like, ours is educationally relevant, but Dr. Van, I think the discrepancy is that the payer considers it a medically necessary service. And that's what delineates the occupational therapy role in the school system. That our rules and practice act state is educationally relevant, but not necessarily medically necessary.
And I get that, and I understand that. It's not what we talked about earlier. This is an evolution of what we've talked about before. And I think that, unless we change the act to allow that, I don't know that we can do much about it. The rules would, and the act seem to be incongruity on that point. And, obviously, if they change the law, we'll change the rules. And, I don't know that the board's going to take a position on the change of the law because we haven't really presented it to them. And if you want to present them with a request to change the law, you can, but it sounds like you don't want to do that right now. And I got enough to do, so I'm happy.
I mean, yeah, at this point, I feel like, the members of OTAC are welcome to chime in, but, that's not something that I'm wishing to pursue at this point. We were brought into it to support or collaborate with the parties that were intending to get some clarification. And it seems like from their email based from the LOTA president that they're not going to pursue it at this time. Is that what you understand, Emily and Elizabeth?
That's from what I heard you say. That's what I understand. And that it would take changing the practice act to really allow therapists in the schools to be able to practice direct services without a referral.
Right.
Is it okay if I say something right here? It's just something that I've kind of noticed in regards to the word education. And I think it's why it's causing some confusion. It's just the way that I see it is that there's nuance that's there with the word education that's being interpreted in different ways. I think it's education, could be education as an OT provided service, education of services related to the field of occupational therapy, or education as the setting in which OT is provided. And so I think because there's no strict definition in the nuance of the word education, that's where these problems are coming from. And so I think if you do have to do something to the Practice Act, then you have to, I feel like there has to be a way that those nuances are identified and then redefined. I'm not saying that we do that now. I'm just saying I think that's where this confusion is coming from.
And I'm going to second Glenn exactly what he said. I think that's been a problem for a long time for a lot of therapists working in the educational setting. That definition of whether it's setting or whether it's the type of service you're providing.
And Dr. Van, from your perspective, since we are in the process of updating the rules and regulations, I mean, that's something that we can clarify in the rules and regs, but I mean, we cannot, the law still proceeds that would not allow for the direct access, but the clarification is something that we can address in the rules and regs.
Well, that's certainly, we can clarify it in the rules and regs, but I think it's going to have to be within the confines of the law, and Ms. Wilton will keep us from running afoul of that. I promise you that.
Correct. Yeah, so. Thank you, Glenn. I mean, I think we can sort of address that when we get to that section, for sure. Well, Elizabeth, thank you for your comments, and we appreciate it. And Ms. Sullivan, I'm sorry, she's here from the Department of Health. I think because that.
And I asked him because it was going to be an issue of payment, but we've sort of changed the parameters I was, told before the meeting. And I apologize if Ms. Sullivan comes and feels like she wasn't appreciated. I genuinely appreciate Ms. Kimberly being here. But again, it's kind of a change of what we talked about prior to the meeting.
Yes, I mean, it was definitely the goal prior to the email that I received yesterday. And Ms. Sullivan, I apologize, and I do appreciate you being here, that I just received the email and I'm out of town and was not expecting that email. So thank you for coming.
Oh, you're welcome. No apologies necessary. I love working with Dr. Van and everybody over there at the board. So no worries. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Okay, is there any other questions or comments related to this agenda item from OTAC?
There are no public comments that I can find at this time, ma'am.
Okay, and no public comments either. Okay, great. So we will move on to the next agenda item, which is the CEU review transfer / CE broker for ACOT, and that is going to be from Ingrid.
Jacinta, can you, let's see, am I allowed to share the screen? Let's see if I can. No. Can you let me share the screen, Jacinta?
Yeah, sure. Just give me a second.
Okay. I got it. Thank you. Yeah, I've got it. Just got to find the right thing. Where did my show all windows? Here we go. Proposed CE broker wording. Found it. Okay. The way our CE broker is currently worded makes it sound as if only self-study or independent study courses are required to have AOTA, NBCOT, or LOTA approval. I put that in red and crossed it out, but that's the current language on CE broker. So my proposal was to remove that And so that it states simply to be acceptable as qualified continuing professional ed, the courses have to be sponsored by, et cetera, et cetera. And then the other piece is that we've been talking about adding for courses taken in pursuing a post-professional occupational therapy degree. All those courses meet these parameters that we already have established. These parameters here that I'm talking about. All coursework related to a post-professional OT degree has significant practical content related to the practice of OT, have pre-established goals and objectives, are presented by people who are knowledgeable, provide a system for verification of attendance, and are at least an hour in length. And so my proposal here is that we add to the list of accepted entities or an ACODE accredited college or university occupational therapy education program. This means that things like pursuing an MBA are not going to be qualified. And then when you're on CE Broker, this part is under the, when you click on Learn More, that's where you find this information. And then when you're on CE Broker and you actually click on how to report, I would like to add this that I have in green, because you have to have a single selection currently. How, please select the provider of this course is approved, and we've got AOTA approved provider, LOTA. I would like to add this that I put in green, a college or university OT education program accredited by ACODE. And then on CE Broker, under the attachments, the current language says, please be prepared to attach certificate of completion. And I would like to propose adding in green, or college transcript. So this would all still meet our current, the way our language currently is within both the rules and on CE Broker. So I just wanted to see if everybody was okay with that, and if I could submit this to Dr. Van or Tracy from IT to change or amend to CE Broker.
Dr. Van, you have your hand raised.
Yes, ma'am. In terms of the number of hours awarded for credit, will it be the number of semester hours of the course or the number of physical hours in attendance?
Because of the way our rules are written right now, I think unfortunately that anyone taking a college course can still only count it for well, what did we say? We wanted to give, Dr. Van, you stumped me. I feel like I had the answer to that, and now I don't. In our proposed changes, we talked about credit hours. That's what it is, credit hours. That if the course is a 3 credit hour course, then they would have 3 continuing education credits. That's how it would currently go. If they took a 3 credit hour class, then they would put that down for 3 hours of continuing ed, even though obviously it was much longer than that. In our proposed changes, which we haven't passed yet, we talked about doubling that for college courses, that we would say it would be twice the number of credit hours, but currently it would just need to be flat their credit hours.
Okay, I'm gonna need a copy of this that you're showing on the screen sent to me, because I don't have, that's not in the agenda that I got. Maybe Jacinta can send me a current agenda to check and see, because I can't follow you along on the agenda with that, and I want to make sure we get it exactly right. And I think it would be, I think we need to decide. I mean, help me understand the justification of giving twice the number of credit hours.
Well, that wouldn't even be that's in our future proposed changes, and that would not be right now. It would just be the strict number of credit hours. That's all someone would be able to do.
Okay. All right, we can make that happen.
Sure, for proposed, and but right now,
yeah, we can make what you have on the screen right now happen. Maybe you might want to add something about credit hours
Okay,
in the above explanation. And I can get together with the people at CE Broker and we can make this happen for you pretty quickly.
okay,
If you change the rules, then, and that gets approved, we'll double the credit hours. But right now we'll go with the single credit hours until the rules are changed.
okay, I'll add that.
Inga, can you send that document to Dr. Van and CC me since we don't have this?
Yes, that, and also that was absolutely my fault that you guys didn't have that already. I was desperately going back through my sent emails today and realized that I never did send it to y'all. That was supposed to have been sent to you guys 2 weeks ago. So that was my fault. Anybody else from the committee, from OTAC have anything one way or the other about the language that I used?
Looks good.
Okay, well then I will add about the 1-to-1 credit hours and then send that to Dr. Mann and Jacinta. Thank y'all.
And just so y'all know, some of that's coming from Jacinta is constantly getting questions from people who are taking courses about credit hours. And even like most recently, we had someone asking about med school and wanted to know if that was covered, which obviously it's not, because it's not, you know, for occupational therapy. But the number of questions that we get on this is pretty substantial. And so we felt like it should be there so that when people pull up the selection, there's no way to indicate that now because it's only AOTA, an AOTA approved provider, and LOTA.
And that's what we had originally, the committee had originally decided, and we're happy
Right.
to expand it.
Yeah.
You know, what we have to do, just so you'll understand, is that we'll have to get this approved by the board, and then we'll have the PC broker people change it. But the board will have to approve this little change in that in nuance, and we'll make that happen. If I can get this and get it up to the board pretty quickly, I may be able to get it on this month's agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there any public comment related to this agenda item?
Let's see, 1 second, ma'am, and I'll get there for you.
Thank
I
you.
don't see any,
None.
Dr. Van.
No, I don't see any either.
Okay. All right, so now we're going to move on to the next agenda item of the rules and regulations. I've asked Ingrid to pull up her copy instead of me because I'm still having some issues here between the hotspot. And I don't want anything to happen in the middle of our discussion. I just want to remind y'all that the items that are in red are what Ingrid and I have made suggestions for. Anything that's yellow highlighted, we felt like we needed more information either from AOTA or to discuss with Dr. Van. And then anything that's written in green is already adopted by the OTAC with a vote. Doesn't mean it cannot be changed, but
I will say this, Darby, that last month we did vote on a lot of the changes, remember, for the first 4 pages or so, and I have not gone back and changed them to green.
okay. Well,
So
it shouldn't be affected because we stopped at 1939 on B2, and so we're just going to move forward from there,
Yeah.
right? So,
yes. But much of what you see in red, we did all vote on last month, and it just hasn't been changed to green. Okay, so yeah, this is where we got a sticking point last time. A temporary licensure, a supervision of an occupational therapy assistant who is currently on a temporary license. Let's see, where was I on that? Oh, temporary license. Specifically, number 2, an OT assistant holding a temp license shall be deemed to be satisfied by on-premises direction and immediate supervision by a licensed OT for no less than 25% of the average weekly caseload. Darby, you want me to,
Well, I mean, I just think it's really, we need members of the committee to discuss this because this is where we sort of got stumped with the questions of the weekly caseload and multiple supervisors. And, you know, we kind of asked people to take some time and think about it. Glenn looked up some other information. So do we have any suggestions for rewording it, changing the percentage? Leave it as written. What are y'all's thoughts?
Just for the temporary, is that what we're talking? Just
yeah, we were just
So
talking about
would not be the same as the new grads or,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
I liked what Glenn had sent. I think I sent that to all of y'all from Mississippi and Texas. Both have some more detail. Mississippi is simpler.
Yeah, I agree. I thought Mississippi's was easier to understand.
And it seemed to address what we were concerned about in terms of different. The Mississippi one says let's see, supervision. With supervision of the OT assistant, for the purposes of this section means direct contact at least every week at each treatment facility, with interim supervision occurring by other methods such as telephone or written communication. Probably Mississippi defines interim somewhere else. But they do clarify that the direct contact and supervision needs to be at each treatment facility that the OTA is at, which was one of the things we were talking about, want to clarify.
I agree, Ingrid, that when I read those, that seemed to clarify a lot of the sticking points we had about if you have multiple supervisors or you're in multiple locations. So I think that verbiage helps to clear that up.
The other piece, though, of course, is just this. Is it then at least 25% of the caseload at each facility? Is that onerous? Is that realistic? I don't know.
Yeah,
Is
I mean, I
that
think
the safest thing?
I mean, I think that's probably what we need to consider, that if we just put the wording in there at each facility, is that clarifying?
My impression that I got from, I think it was Brenda that brought it up the last time, was that I think the better way to say it was 25% of the supervising therapist's caseload, not making it be based on the facility itself or the location of where they are, because what if that's with a different, what if each location means a different supervising therapist? So I think if you want to word it that way, I agreed with her that I think it was worded better whenever you tied it to the person who's doing the supervising of the assistant, not the place in which you're getting your hours.
How, I'm trying to figure out how that would play out.
Again, I think Kelly, you'd be able to provide more insight there, but that was just me thinking that was a good suggestion from last time.
It might be, I'm just trying to figure that out in my head. If the OTA was being supervised in one setting, and are you saying that they would have to have direct supervision on 25% of the OT's caseload for that setting? But what if they don't see 25% of the OT's caseload? They might only see like 3 people, I don't know.
It would be on, I'm sorry, Kelly. My thinking would be that it would be on the percentage that the supervisor has given to the OTA to share.
Okay,
So I might have a caseload of 30, but said OTA is only working with 10 of my patients. So then the 25% would be on those 10.
okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
So maybe it would be 25% of the supervising therapist caseload designated to the OTA, right?
That is what it would be, I think.
Like like what Brenda's saying, it's not of the caseload of the therapist, but 25% of the what's designated to the assistant.
Right. And then that helps to put some of the responsibility, I think, on the OTA for making sure that they're tracking, well, I'm working with 10 patients. I have to make sure that I'm getting signed off on 25% of that from the therapist that I'm working with on those 10. And maybe at the other facility, I have 5 and I have to make sure I'm getting 25% of those 5 signed off by the therapist at that facility. And I want to say, and I apologize for not having it in front of me, I want to say in some of that wording that Glenn sent that there was a state that kind of worded it closer to that. And again, I apologize for not having it in front of me.
And I know I just asked this, but we're just talking about temporary for every setting, not the part that says, because the new license holders have 25% every week also, but they would just be 25% of their average weekly caseload, and we're just talking about the temps would be the OTs.
Right now, we are only talking about OTAs that are on a temp license, Kelly. When we get to supervision requirements of fully licensed CODAs, I think it's definitely worth a discussion on, do we hold them to the same standards as a temp license? It doesn't feel like that makes sense to me. But right now, we are fully just concentrating on temp license holders.
Okay, I feel better about that. Okay, because
We had a couple of hands raised.
Sorry.
Dr. Van?
Yeah, could you show, I mean, I'm a little bit fuzzy on what we're looking at. I know you have your document and I have my old rules, but are we talking about section 1940?
No, we're still on 1939.
Okay.
License, not 1939, license pending examination. Section B, number 2.
Okay, well, we
This
sort of have the board is just, I want to share this with you. We can put this in the rules, but I will tell you that the board has taken a position that if we don't have a criminal background check, we should not be issuing a temporary license. They are uncomfortable with that. So again, I don't know if you want to address that here, or it's just a policy that the board has given us to do. If you want to put that in there, you can. We understand what you're trying to do, but frequently, and maybe Ms. Wilton will comment on this as we rewrite it, it may be simpler to say that all temporary licenses, whenever granted, are subject to the same rules of permanent licensure. And then you might want to define this supervision under permanent licensure, but it's your choice to do it any way you want. We'll try and incorporate the language that makes the best sense from a rulemaking process.
I think because our temp licenses, they do have the background check handled. It's just that they haven't taken their certification exam and haven't received the results. So the idea that we may need to look more closely or keep more tighter supervision on OTs and OTAs who have not yet proven that they can pass their exam. That's what we're trying to do here.
Let me ask a question. What is the wisdom of letting somebody who has not passed their licensing examination practice this profession?
It doesn't mean that they haven't passed it. They just haven't gotten the results yet.
Can I
How
answer?
long does it take to get results?
Okay, can I answer?
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay, so there are situations where a student has completed all of their requirements for graduation, yet they haven't graduated yet, and they could have even taken their exam because they've completed all the requirements. And so there could be a time frame in there between the time of actual graduation and the time that they took the exam, like where the graduation's after. So they can't get the results of their exam until NBCOT has received their final transcript saying that they have graduated. And so we can't give them a full license until NBCOT has seen that they've graduated. So there could be some kind of lapse in time. So for example, some of my students might finish in November, they graduate in December. They could take their test as soon as they finish. Some of them want to start work immediately. And so because they finish, we say that they finished all their requirements, they even take the exam right after that, but they can't get the results until after graduation. And then NBCOT closes for about three or 4 weeks in there. So that could even delay it even longer. And so then they wouldn't be able to work until they got that. Some people delay because they're trying to raise money because it costs $600 to take the test. And so they start work and then they study and take the test maybe in January. So they work about a month under a temp license and then get their results in January. So we're not talking a really long period of time that they work under the temp license. But we do have several that are hired at the end of their field work. You know, they're ready to start working. And so it's just, you know, I think that they can only have the temp license for what, 90 days?
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Another piece of that also, yes, it is. It's 90-day period. Another piece is that the exam slots fill up. And so a newly graduated student might be told that they can't get in for the exam for another 2 months and they need to start working. So those are the most common reasons that somebody would need a temporary license. And we're just trying to figure out at what.
Yeah, and that happened to me because I finished in October, or you know, well, actually, it's happening. I think to some of the OT students, their graduation is several months after they finish, and so they can't get a license until after the graduation.
We've had students who traveled 4 and 5 states away to take the test because it's all filled up locally, but not everyone can afford to do that, and they have to wait until it's offered locally.
Does that answer your question, Dr. Van?
well, it does, and you know, the board will have to look at what you want to do, and we'll have to, I would appreciate it very much that when this final document goes to the board for approval, that some of you all be there, because I think the board's going to need to understand why you're doing a temporary license without having passed your examination. It's kind of, we really don't do that for a lot of the other licensee classes we have. And this will be making somewhat of an exception. So I want to make sure you're there to address the concerns.
Dr. Collado, this is already part of our current rules. We're actually making it more strict.
I understand, but what I'm trying to tell you is, remember, anytime you open up a law or rule, you're subject to getting a lot less or more than you really wanted, okay?
Okay.
I want to make sure that we can explain to the board the justification behind this, because somebody's going to say, wait a minute, this other licensing class can't go to work until they get the results of that test, whenever that test is. So again, I just want you to be able to be there to help me make sure I adequately represent you to the board and your desires to the board.
Sounds good. We will. All right, so what we've got so far is for number 2, shall be deemed to be satisfied by on-premises direction and immediate supervision by a licensed OT for no less than 25% of each supervising occupational therapist's caseload, seen in conjunction with the OTA. That's what I've got written down. Does that kind of clarify that? Kelly, you're the one who gets these questions the most. Can I type on this while it's up here? Maybe I can.
It's your document.
Yeah, you're right. I can't. Well, people can see that 25% of
Of the supervising therapist caseload
yes.
designated or seen in conjunction with the OT assistant. And you're going to take out the average weekly caseload, right?
So yes, so that would be out, and
That should be in
this
green.
would be in.
Is this per week, per setting?
Oh yeah, you're right. We need to put a time frame.
Mhm.
Well, we went back and forth about setting versus supervising OT. And Glenn's suggestion was that we stick to it by each supervising OT as opposed to each setting, since the OTs move around, I guess.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
So we've changed it to being, it's the caseload of each supervising OT. But yes, we do need to have some sort of time frame that we're talking about. On a weekly basis.
Well, right now, the full license is 25% weekly.
Mhm.
I mean, that is hard, but it is a temp license. I would not recommend it for a full license, but for a temp license, you know, it's hard but doable. They shouldn't be going to a lot of different places at that point anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if it's weekly now, it should probably stay weekly
Yes.
Mhm.
because there is a chance that they will not pass the exam.
If we change the supervising to each supervising, does that help clear up the conundrum of having multiple supervisors?
Yes, good catch.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I guess also just the possessive of therapists also, right?
That's
Like
what happened.
apostrophe is.
Correct.
Apostrophe in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Oops.
What if that therapist is on vacation? Does that mean that they can't practice that week? Because they can't get 25% from that person?
Yeah, but their caseload would have been delivered over to another OT before they went on vacation. So then that OT would not supervise.
But what if there's not another OT that's covering? Or that person can't practice, correct?
I would say they wouldn't be able to practice if there's no one to
Okay, that's
supervise them.
No OT, but how can an OT go on vacation and nobody's been given
Well, then they're using the temporary.
But that's a temp coda. You'd still need to have an OT who actually is in charge of that caseload before the OT goes on vacation.
I don't know. There's a lot of times when, I don't know, that's
That
my,
shouldn't be happening. That shouldn't be happening. I mean, the OT is ultimately responsible for the client, so. All right, well,
They all okay with the way that it's written?
I think it
And
looks
again,
good.
it's just semantics, but it clears it up for me if there is like which case, like each supervising occupational therapist caseload which is seen in conjunction.
Okay.
And that just might be me, but that just clears it up for me when I read it.
Mhm.
Or would it, I mean, is the word assigned a better semantic word? Like when you're an OT assistant, like are you assigned certain patients? Are they designated to you? Are they assigned to you? So like that makes it kind of clearer.
Or which is
assigned or designated to the
delegated.
OT assistant.
Delegated to the OTA on a weekly basis, or
Yeah, just to make it clear
Dele-
that it's like 25% of the patients that is the OTA's responsibility or like designated to them or assigned to them. I don't know the right.
The reason,
verbiage.
I guess the reason I liked seen in conjunction is, you know, it's supposed to be a partnership all along.
Right. Yeah. Okay. As long as it's clear, like, I mean, Brenda, I think like getting nitpicky like that is really important so that there's less opportunity for confusion.
Right.
I think what you're saying,
Or-
Darby, probably needs to be in there because they are given a caseload most of the time by the OT. So they're assigned specific patients. So why would they see the therapist caseload, 25% of the therapist caseload, if they're not seeing that many? You know what I'm saying? So if they have
Right.
like,
So it's 25% of the people that they're assigned to, correct?
right. Yeah, I think that needs to be in there.
I think it's a little confusing to me because we have like, it's 25% of the therapist caseload, but it's 25%.
How about 25% of the therapist caseload, which is also designated to the OTA?
No,
Or
because
what if we switch the order of which
right,
level comes first? So 25% of
the assigned caseload.
OTA's assigned caseload that is shared with each therapist.
Yeah, I still feel like there's a little bit of like confusion, like Caroline was saying, like it's really the 25% of the OTA's assigned caseload.
Right.
Okay.
Or
25% of the OTA's assigned caseload,
Seen in
which
conjunction with the supervising occupational
in
therapist,
conjunction with the supervising. Okay.
occupational therapist. That make a little bit clearer?
Well, we'll find, let's. Not listen.
Take out, don't you need to take out the caseload, the second caseload after therapist?
Mhm. Yeah.
And just make that plural or, I mean, singular. There you go.
So we're saying each week, 25% of the patients that's assigned to the OT assistant has to be supervised.
correct.
So if in a week they see 100 patients, they only need supervision for 25% of those.
Well, that's with, if they see 100 patients, but it's 25% of each individual therapist they're working with.
But it would still be 20, if you have 100 patients total, it would still be 25. Would it help with clarity? And I hesitate to make things murkier, but so, okay, less than 25% of the OTA's assigned caseload, period.
In conjunction with.
And then if a OTA works with more than one practitioner, this applies per practitioner, or that just made it way too wordy.
I just changed the to each, because that's what we had before. Somehow that got erased. So
Yeah, so
not
each
less than
supervisor.
25% of the OTA's assigned,
Each, okay.
which is seen in conjunction with each supervising OT on a weekly basis. Does that clarify what you were just saying, Brenda?
I'm reading it again. Percent of the OT's caseload, which is seen in conjunction. Yes and no. Sorry. Somebody else feel free to chime in.
Hey, this is Patricia. I think it still doesn't make it clear that each supervising
Right.
OT has to do the supervision for their own designated cases.
That's what I'm thinking, maybe like a second sentence that defines this applies to each therapist that the OT works with, or each, yeah, it would be each therapist, because you could even have two therapists in one setting.
I just threw that in there.
Yeah.
So what if we said something like 25% of the OTA's assigned caseload for each setting and supervising therapist?
Or 25% of the OTA's assigned caseload by the OT who assigned it or something. I mean, something just as simple as that.
Or what if the word total just goes in there somewhere? 25% of the OTA's total assigned caseload, regardless of number of
Yeah, because that takes out how many
supervisors
supervisors you have in how many settings. So 25% of the OTA's total assigned caseload.
I thought we wanted each supervising OT to have their eyes on the CODA.
Well,
So
we
if we
do.
said we do, so if we said, oh,
That sounds contradictory to me.
Yeah, me too.
yeah.
Dr. Van has his hand raised.
Sorry, I'm terrible at looking at that.
I can't see it on mine. I'm sorry, Patricia.
No,
thank
you're
you.
good. That's what I'm here for.
I can't, I don't know where you're seeing it.
Darby, if I may ask a question, since this is a temporary phenomenon, which would disappear if they fail to pass the test, why don't you simply limit it to one or two OT supervisors? They can be at work. You'll make this less complicated. And that way, or if you limit it to one, then it's 25% of that one assigned cases. You limit it to two. But once you start getting 4 different locations, 4 different supervisors, and then each one's got to do 25% of the work that they assign, it is going to get difficult to function. Okay. And again, this is just a temporary till we get the results of the test finalized. And maybe it is a privilege to get this temporary permit. Maybe we should limit it because we really don't know. Suppose they don't pass the test. Suppose they don't get the certification. Then we've got a lot of people out there that are going to be out of a CODA. Just a thought for your consideration.
Yeah. I mean, Kelly would have better references to how many settings that is typically. I mean, I wasn't even aware that they would really like jump multiple settings, I guess, in a week or within their temporary license. But I mean, I agree that this is like such a, I assume it's a small percentage of people like that in a short amount of time that, yes, we need them seeing 25% of their assigned caseload.
My original concern or confusion came with the OTAs that are fully licensed because because many of them go to multiple sites and have different supervisors. My concern with the temporary was that it was the same exact rule.
You could limit it to the number of people that that can be supervised by.
Yeah, or even 50%, just keep it like it is and say 50% of of the OTA's caseload per week, you know?
For the
But
temp
that
license.
that at least bumps up the amount of supervision that they have to have. And it is temporary. And then to me, the bigger question then becomes, how do we handle the fully licensed? Is that going to be per setting or per supervisor? Or
Which is later in the rules, but still
Right.
needs to be addressed.
Right.
Yeah.
later on?
So I guess Dr. Van's question is, do we want to limit the temporary license, increase the number of supervision and decrease the number of settings or supervisors? Or do we just leave it sort of
You don't
as we
wanna
have it?
I just don't want you to introduce any kind of bias I don't want you to introduce any kind of bias into the supervision. Let's say they're in 4 settings and 2 supervisors do 50% of the total number of patients. The other 2 supervisors have not had a chance to get involved. And it may be inhibiting or setting up a bias for what's going on. They may be doing a great job with 2 people in one place and not doing a good job with 2 people in another place. And it may be patient settings, patient complications, patient severity, and things like that. And you're not getting the supervision I think you really are intending. But again, this is what you're going to propose to the board, and we'll put it in the right language, and the board will pick it apart or do what they want to do with it after we get it to them. But I just want you to think about those kind of things as you talk about this, because this really is just till they can get what you seem to think is a reasonably short period of time to get their certification examination results.
Right. So Kelly, did you want to increase the percentage of supervision for the temp?
Well, what do y'all think?
I would agree with that. This is Raylena. I would agree with increasing the percentage. Just simply as a new, for a new grad, I think that just the extra wouldn't hurt. And then also, like Kelly said, to make it different, it needs to be
Right.
different. There needs to be a definitive
Standard.
differentiation between that and a fully licensed.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Right,
could,
just like Dr. Carlotta said, it should be it should be more restrictive and a privilege. And if
Right.
it's not set aside, if it's not designated as such in the rules, then how is it actually different other than saying that it's temporary?
Yeah.
50% and limited to 2 settings, maybe.
Okay.
Because they really don't, I mean, of course, there's a whole lot more OTAs than those I know of, but I don't know a lot under a temp license who work in multiple settings. They usually are hired because a place really needed someone, wanted them in that one place for that amount of time. So I know there's exceptions, but I don't see them really floating around a whole lot at that point.
Okay.
I'm just gonna write something here, and we can.
I'd love to have an OTA on the board.
Yeah.
Try. Next time a slot comes up, help us find one. I think it's easier now that we can do Zoom. Like, I think, it's,
Well, I'm probably the next one that comes up, so maybe you just need to replace me with an OTA.
that's not what I was suggesting, Kelly.
I don't know. I think it was. No.
Not at all.
Kelly says, give that ball to Leroy, huh?
Yeah, right. I'm like, no, we're not letting you out that easily.
Okay, so I just added a new number 2, just stating an OT assistant practicing under a temporary license shall practice in no more than 2 settings.
Okay.
And then we go on to an OT assistant shall be deemed satisfied with on-premise direction and supervision. by a licensed OT for not less than 50% of the OTA's assigned caseload, which is seen in conjunction with each supervising OT on a weekly basis. This applies to each OT who is supervising the OTA.
Okay, I mean, I feel like it's much clearer and we've increased the supervision and we clarified the settings.
What is the exact definition of setting?
Location? Is it physical location?
All right.
Because what if I did a lot of home health, and what if you're working for several different companies? You know, when you work for occupational therapy for home health, you could work for 4 different companies. So what happens?
Could you do that on a temp license though?
I don't know. That was my question. I don't know.
You can't do home health on a temp license. Oh,
Right.
you can't do home health at a full license for 2 years,
Okay.
honestly. But I mean, you can still work for multiple companies though, you know, even in a, you know, that have contracts with the rehab departments in different places. But I think we're talking about the physical location regardless of the company.
I don't know.
But
That's
it's
what I'm
not
saying.
home health. They can't do home health.
Okay.
Instead of the location or the setting, would we want to limit the number of supervisors? Shall practice in conjunction with no more than 2
No more than
occupational
2
therapists.
2 supervising occupational therapists.
And then I think if you just say 2 occupational therapists, that kind of takes care of, I guess, maybe where they are, unless you want to say, you know, in accordance with the current rules and regulations, like some kind of statement like that at the end of the sentence. But 2 of them, I mean, that kind of takes care of, at least in my mind, that kind of takes care of the where, unless it needs to be explicitly stated.
Okay, I just changed this. An OTA practicing under a temporary license shall practice under the supervision of no more than 2 occupational therapists and may not practice in the home health setting. Or am I cramming too much into one thing?
I don't really think that's necessary because it has
Yeah, I
another
don't
part that home health isn't. They can't do home health.
Gotcha,
You know,
Yeah.
gotcha,
I mean, like I said, a fully licensed OTA can't do it for 2 years.
got it.
And just in keeping with the verbiage that I think we have possibly in the beginning of this, just the word licensed occupational therapist.
Okay.
Okay, so everybody read number 2 and number 3, and then
Maybe number 2 should read an occupational therapy assistant holding a temporary license under this section, because that's how the number 1 and
Number
number
1
3
is.
start out.
Yeah. Everybody comfortable with this?
I am.
Last time, Darby, you took a vote on each section change.
I was just trying to make sure everybody like had a chance to.
I'm good.
Are there any other comments before we take a vote?
I just had a number one, we still
Mhm.
want not less than 2 hours each week. Where did that,
For number one, about an OT on a temp license.
yes,
Mhm.
I guess that's just to keep them still in practice on the temp license instead of getting a temp license.
No, this is really, this has nothing to do with OTAs. Now she's looking at number one, like that's the supervision requirements for OTs on a temp license. Is it adequate, I guess? Is that what you're asking?
yes.
Is 2 hours a week of supervision of an OT operating on a temp license adequate?
I think so.
I'm just saying we didn't discuss the 2 hours. So I just wanted to make sure before we moved on that that was still correct.
At the last meeting, nobody had an issue with the 2 hours, but that doesn't mean we can't talk about it now.
Okay.
So it's basically just saying that you have to be supervised for more than 2 hours a week.
It just says that an OT on a temp license has to have another OT physically watching their therapy. That's what direct supervision means.
Yeah.
For at least 2 hours per week.
I think it's good.
I do too.
Okay, so do we need a motion to approve these, or do we just take a vote?
What did we do last time? I think you took them. I think you motioned for each one.
Okay. So would someone like to motion to accept the changes of section B2 and 3 as written?
I move that we accept the changes as currently written
Okay, Brenda.
to the
thank you.
numbers that Darby just mentioned.
Okay,
Now we have to get a second, Darby.
okay, I'll second it.
And then you did take a voice vote also.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone oppose? Anyone abstain? Okay. So Ingrid, you can change that to green.
I'm gonna do it right now.
Darby, may I interject, please, ma'am?
Of course.
I did a little, while y'all were discussing that, I did a little research, and you were talking about adding an OTA to the board. Since the board is a configuration of the LSBME and not an appointment by any of the state officers like the governor, you could add in the rule change an OTA to be on the board.
I think in previous, like when I first got on the board, I can't even count the years now. We did propose that later in the rules, that it doesn't state that it has to be an assistant, but that it is encouraged to be an assistant.
Well, again, maybe I need to find out, because the rules don't say that. Right now it says the advisory committee shall comprise 9 members who shall be occupational therapists licensed by the board and practicing and residing in the state of Louisiana, consisting more particularly of 1 licensed occupational therapist proficient in and representing each of the following areas.
Yeah, we voted on it as a committee in this document, but it's.
Oh, okay. So is it,
not-
I don't have
yeah.
that document to see it.
Right.
I apologize.
No, that's okay.
It's in
I'm
our
sorry,
change.
I wasn't clear. Yes, we voted on it as a committee and it's somewhere in these rules, but it has not yet gone to the board. But we have definitely made extreme effort to include and encourage that an assistant be on the board.
Well, why don't you just make a slot for one?
Because we have had trouble getting them in the past, but that was when we had to meet in person. So
Well,
when we get,
Yeah,
that
let's go ahead and, I would suggest you make a slot for one.
yeah, okay. So we'll put that for,
Okay, wait, I have a question because we haven't had, the LSBME has not yet voted on our proposed change to make one of the OTAC seats be for an OT assistant. So wouldn't we have to have the LSBME approve that change before adding a slot?
No, they would approve that change as part of the rule change,
rules.
and the slot would be created. So what you really have to do is revise the rules to say
Okay,
the advisory committee shall comprise 9 members, or you could say 10 members, who shall be occupational therapists, or 9 members who be occupational therapists, practice licensed by the board and practicing and residing within the state of Louisiana, and 1 OTA shall be licensed by the board and practicing and residing
now
in the
I
state
get
of
it.
Louisiana.
Now I get what you're saying.
So, Ingrid, if you just take your rules and go
Yeah.
down just a little bitty bit to subchapter G, you can show Dr. Van the proposed, you have G in here? Yeah,
It's going
keep
to be
going.
section 1959. Section
Wait, well,
1959.
stop, wait, right there, stop right there,
Yeah,
stop.
he's right about the fact that the way we wrote it, one should be an OTA. And what Dr. Van is saying is we should change that to one shall be an OTA.
Yeah,
So what I'm saying is, do you want 9 in 1 or 8 in 1?
well, we kept 9 so that it's uneven for voting,
Okay.
so that we didn't
It's
have.
whatever you want. It's whatever
Yeah.
you want. We're going
That
to
was the
present it to
thought
the
back
board.
then.
Yeah.
We didn't want to add a position so that we could keep it odd for the purposes of voting, that we wouldn't have a tie and we'd have an odd number. But you know, when we mosey on down to that section, it can definitely be up for discussion.
Mhm. Okay, so we have finished with this temp license section. Is this where we ended last time, Darby?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so we're literally here now on number 1940.
I think we read through 1940. We can read through it again. I had it marked. Let me make sure on my
I thought
copy.
we had said no changes to 1940 for some reason.
Yeah, well, we went through 1940 and we started at, so we should be at subchapter F, but we had a note to go back and address number B2. But if people want to read, it's about the application for a visa, which we had some questions about. Remember, people were asking about the visa and
Dreamers.
CIS, but
Yeah.
Yeah, so my notes say that we got through that section and that we stopped at subchapter F due to time, but that we needed to go back and address number 2.
Okay.
So,
So we are on subchapter F then.
right. And we designated an hour, and 12:05 would mark an hour. So I just want to throw that out there unless we agree to continue to more, but basically that would leave us like 15 minutes for subchapter F. And again, we can just mark where we finish. But I say we at least start it because some of it is I'm not sure that we're going to have changes. This is with subchapter F would be the license issuance, determination, and renewal and restatement. So if you can read through section 1943, it only has a section A, and see if there's any proposed changes. Basically just saying that the board should issue to the applicant a license to engage in the practice of OT in the state of Louisiana upon payment of the fees set forth in chapter 1.
I don't have a problem with this.
Okay. Moving on to 1945. Someone please speak up if we're going too fast. The expiration. So it's just saying that each one should expire and become null and void each year on the last day of the month in which the licensee was born. So that's when your license expires. Section 1947 is the renewal. Let's just read through section A. renewed annually on or before the date of expiration. I think that's pretty clear cut.
Well, the part about the, and I just lost it, but that the fees are prescribed in chapter 1. I know last time we had talked about not having like an actual amount for the fee. So then I don't know if that.
We
Like,
did say that.
could- right. So, I mean, are the rules still, I guess, because I think that we decided to just say as outlined by the board. So I guess that still applies. So. Again, just semantics.
Uh-huh.
Is, what is does chapter 1 have the,
Yeah, that's what I was looking up. I kind of scrolled up and I'm looking for chapter 1. It's
Chapter 1 did, and we Dr. Van wanted us to remove any dollar amounts, and we did. But I don't think that really changes being able to say fees as prescribed. I mean, it just is referring to the fact that there's fees.
Okay. Sounds
I
good.
didn't remove the dollar amounts. I thought we had.
We didn't. No,
We talked about it.
Yeah, we sure did. Didn't you want us to remove those, Dr. Van?
It would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For processing.
No, I think we did, but
Payable.
perhaps you just didn't make the changes, Ingrid.
Yeah, I know.
Did you make all the changes from
Oh,
last
you
time?
know, I didn't. No, that's
Right.
why.
We did
Oh.
take that out.
We did. Yep.
Yeah.
I just haven't put them into there. We did.
Yeah. No, we did. We did take them out.
Mhm.
So maybe Brenda, instead of just saying, outline in chapter 1, it could just say,
applicable fees?
the fee set forth by the board.
By the board.
Period.
Mhm.
So that would be in 1943, section A, Ingrid. And take out where it just says chapter 1, it just says license fees set forth by the board.
And I have a question about a renewal for
Okay.
a new licensee. So someone that just obtained their license, and then let's say in January, and then their birthday is in May or June, they have to renew again. Like, what is the time frame there that they have to renew again? Because that came up or last year, I don't know. And some of them had just gotten their license and then had to turn around and pay again after just a few months.
That is the standard by which we operate on birthday month situations. So that my birthday may be in September and I finish medical school in June and get my license in July, I would have to renew or finish my residency in June, get my license in July. I would still have to renew in September and I would have to do my CMEs as well. But that's the problem we have and the solution we've given, and it's the standard around in all of the other classes of licenses that have birthday month renewals.
But isn't there a minimum amount or a maximum of, like, because I had some graduates whose birthday was in March and they didn't have to renew. So there was some leniency for some, but
Well, no, I don't think if they're granting leniency, it's unbeknownst to me in administration, it shouldn't be. It's basically if you graduate, whenever you, because we have various birthdays and various graduation days. For doctors, it's pretty simple. You got an August birthday, you're in a bit of a bind, okay? For a birthday in March and a graduation in July, you're doing okay. But if you graduate, and you guys seem to graduate at multiple times during the year, and again, we can't control that because that's the curriculum the schools passed. So the standard has been whatever you graduate, the first birthday is the first renewal.
so if they get their license in January and their birthday's in February,
They renew in February.
And it's really no different than I hold a license in another state, and I had to pay for my first license that I practiced on for 3 weeks. And then I had to immediately renew. It kind of sucks if you're the person that falls in that category, but
How it is.
That's just how it is.
Okay.
Ingrid, you made the change to 1947, but we also saw it in 1943. So can you scroll up? Because the very first one that I think Brenda brought to our attention was in 1943. Right there.
Actually, I didn't catch it there. Good catch, Darby.
The
I remembered
senior-
it, and I kind of remember thinking like, we're in sub-chapters, which chapter one, where is chapter one? And I kind of started scrolling to check, but.
And Darby, if I may interrupt, you may want to go back to section 1940A. I just want to make a comment so you'll understand what that means to the board.
Okay, sure.
These since you specifically address H-1B visa processing, that's a unique situation where we don't consider it processed until we have an exchange of letters between the board and INS. INS says, we're going to grant the H-1B, and we say, if you grant the license, and we send them a letter saying, we're going to grant the license, you grant the H-1B. It's not just when they apply for the H-1B, we don't grant the license until we have those exchange of letters on H-1B visas. And it's just because H-1B visas go through a rather lengthy process that's beyond our control, but the INS will issue us a letter saying, we're going to give the H-1B if you grant the license. And then we've done all the rest of the stuff to grant the license, and we send them a letter saying, we're granting the license if you give the H-1B, and then we grant the license. So again, I think the key here is to understand, since you specifically addressed H-1B, and earlier in the rules, you specifically say, have to be a citizen and have a valid permit to live and work in the United States. So again, understand, I just want you to explain what you have there in 1940A and how we mean. It's not just I applied for my H-1B visa. It's when we have those interlocking letters.
Okay, so our rules just say H1. Should it say H1B?
Well, H1, they're H-1Bs and Cs, but medical
Okay.
ends up being H-1B most of the time.
Okay, so it's okay like that. Okay. Yeah.
Dr. Van, if I may, I just called Latasha regarding that issue y'all were talking about with the renewal of the licenses for new licensees.
Mm-hmm.
It is 4 months. So if you're issued a license in June and your birthday's in July, you actually roll over to the next year. So it's within 4 months.
That's
Oh,
not in
thank
the
you.
rules. That may be an operational thing that they did.
Yeah, it
That's
is.
not
It's
in
an
the
operational
rules.
thing, I believe.
But we don't do that for docs.
We do. I believe we do.
All right, well, I'll have to check on that because I was told we
Okay.
didn't.
I just wanted to say, throw that out there because I kind of thought that's what we were doing. It was 6 months at one point, but I think they changed it to 4.
Okay.
But yeah, and Aloma didn't answer, so I couldn't get very
Oh,
clear.
Thank you
I
for-
need to check with Aloma on that one because
Yeah.
I think we changed that.
Okay.
Some people didn't get the message, but I'll check with
Okay.
Aloma and I'll get back to you all at the next meeting. to be
Okay.
sure.
Thank you. Because that's what we were told. And so I just wanted to make sure that I'm advising my students that they are aware.
I'll get that information for you and email you and all of the members of the committee that operational situation, because that's really an operational situation. It seems to vary, and I told Aloma to make it consistent so that nobody complains discrimination. So I don't know what she did, but I'll address it for sure.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we are on 47 now.
Yes, we just finished changing 1947A.
Right.
And so I guess we're moving on to 1947B, C, D.
Okay. New application. So for C, do we need to take out chapter 1 or do we just put prescribed by the board?
Jacinta, are you online?
I am.
Please call me about a DocuSign that needs to be to Dr. Johnson today.
I got it to him yesterday. I'll call you though.
Okay, he says they haven't received it. That's the only reason I need to talk to you.
So in D, we changed the terminology to the AOTA's preferred terminology of occupational therapy practitioner. Anytime that you're talking about an OT and an OTA in the same sentence.
And we're, as a committee, okay with saying that we're not requiring an NBCOT certification, correct?
Good thing to bring up.
Is everyone still comfortable with that?
Any idea, Darby or anybody else, how many states require that?
We looked that up at
Are
one
they going to
point.
require it with compact? Does anybody know?
They are not, but I mean, I can find out and bring that up. Remember we asked her and it was like surprisingly low.
Okay. Well, then we'll the only thing that kind of bugs me is that there's probably like innumerable number of OTs in Louisiana who have not remained current on their NBCOT, but who still feel free to put the R at the end.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
And, you know, you can't catch them. But
right. Glenn, did you have something that you wanted to say?
Yeah. It was
you're not coming in, Glenn.
my limited understanding of the people who did not have the R, but I mean, this is, you can't hear me?
It's getting better.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I apologize. My limited understanding of that situation was that it was more prevalent in the education field because it's just people, it was like there wasn't any like clinical services being provided. I mean, I have limited insight there, but I mean, that was just my impression of, I guess, keeping it worded that way, is that there might be people who are teaching but not practicing, and so they still want to remain licensed, but the need for the registration was more in the clinical setting. Sorry if I'm sounding uneducated here on this topic, but that was just my limited insight there.
I don't know where it came from. I do know that all of the faculty here do have their NBCOT certification and keep it current.
And I know in talking to
Okay, that's my mistake. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I know in talking with them, like they're trying to push that you can get like a banner logo for your email that you can put on there that like says NBCOT if you are registered. So it was kind of like a backup thing. If you can put OTL if you have your license, but you can only put the R if you're registered or certified with NBCOT. So they were kind of pushing when you get certified by NBCOT that you get this little like banner that you can include in your signature for emails. It's like a little icon to help distinguish, because I feel like Ingrid said, a lot of people don't understand what that R actually means. But okay, so if we're fine with that, then that'll take us to 1949. The reinstatement of the license.
Do we want to just vote on the changes to 1940?
I was gonna wait. Hopefully, if we could get to the end of 1951, then I would just do a vote for all of it.
Gotcha.
If that's okay.
Yeah.
In B, where it says you can get it on the website or by a written request, don't all the licenses have to be done online now? I guess that's more of a Dr. Van question.
Yeah, I just sent them maybe.
No, yes, ma'am. They're all being done online.
So you can't do a written request or a personal request?
For renewal license?
It says, well, right now it says the renewal application and instructions may be obtained from the board's webpage or upon personal or written request to the board.
No, we'd like to have that changed to say online only.
Okay, so we need to revamp number B. Okay. Thank you, Brenda.
Sure.
I was wondering that too, and then.
And in C, and this would be in just a typo from a long time ago, but like that sentence only makes sense to me if it says renewal in a manner prescribed by the board.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, I see it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Moving on. So just real quickly, guys, are y'all comfortable going all the way to subchapter G since we are a few minutes over the 1 hour mark? Y'all okay just getting to subchapter G and then stopping?
I'm okay.
Okay, great. Anyone not, speak now or we're moving on. Okay, 1949, reinstatement of license.
Just making the change that that we made with all the others in terms about the fees.
Okay. Yeah. So Ingrid and I just added the appropriate proof of continuing education because we know that that's a step of the reinstatement. So that was like our suggestions in B. And then keeping in that if it's expired for 2 or more years, that there may be additional fees and requirements. And then this would just be like, I guess, a committee and or board decision of what, like if they would, whether or not they would have to take their re-exam and do continuing education and things for the original license. Does anyone have any comments on those sections?
I am wondering why we added about appropriate proof of continuing education when that's referred to in the letter C. I wonder what.
Isn't B, C is only if you've 2 years or more late.
Oh, that's probably
Yeah.
why.
Applies
Yeah.
to-
Okay, are there any questions or comments? For the section 1949 reinstatement of license. Okay, if not, let's move on to 1951.
where it says, or he may use the letters.
Yeah, you got to take out the he. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah. So that, or to change it to they, or just, or may use the letters.
I would take out the word he personally.
Oh, just take out the word as opposed to change it to they?
Yeah,
What
or may
works
use, yeah,
grammatically? Huh? Does it work grammatically to just take the word out?
or may use letters. I think it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then there's his,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna have to definitely stay there. On that one, I do believe.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I don't know why the letters get spaced out sometimes.
Because it's on justification to make it like it's justified, not centered.
Oh. Yeah, why do I have that like that?
Well, it kind of should be because it's all like that. Yeah, that's how the rules are written.
Okay.
You probably need to put it back.
Okay, hold on, grammatically here, and or may use the letters OT in connection with their name or place of business.
Dr. Van has his hand raised.
Dr. Van?
Listen, I just want to comment that we don't care what you call yourselves, and you can do that by rule. But for purposes of our data management, y'all are going to be either OTs or OTAs. Is that comfortable for you all?
What do you mean, as opposed to like LOTR or?
Yeah, so for example, somebody goes to verify your license, it will only verify you as an OT or an OTA that's licensed in Louisiana.
That's fine.
Okay,
That's good.
all right, I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is just really discussing the whole thing about using the registered or the R
Right.
in the title of the license.
I just don't want somebody to say, well, the board lists me just as an OT. It doesn't list me as a R, OTR.
Right. Right.
And then it's going to be the same pronoun changes when you get to section B.
Yeah. It's funny because I've never seen it written as LOTA. Kelly, is that a thing, or do y'all put OTA/L?
They usually just put COTA and don't even put the L.
So C would mean that they're certified with NBCOT, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I've ever seen LOTA, just that.
Or OTA/L. I don't know that I've ever seen that either,
But we have tried to make sure they understand the same thing with the R with the OT, that the C with the OTA means they have to be certified too. They can't just write it. Because a lot of people just call them codas, even though they don't know what the C is for.
right. Yeah. It's like a bad habit.
We definitely try to emphasize it too, but I'm not going to speak for people after they're like a year or two out and what they're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So other than the changes with the he to they, are there any changes under the title of licensees?
It looks like the justification is different in section A and B. It looks like
Yeah.
it's justified.
What was I
Yeah.
supposed to put it as? Which direction?
The box on the
Great.
far right.
Box on the far right,
Yeah.
like center,
but
like
you-
that?
Yeah,
Oh,
for all the sections.
all right, I messed that up.
That's okay. Thank you. I was gonna deal with that after. Like, I mean, we'll have to like review it and like clean it up and all the spacing issues before we obviously present it to the board. But keeping it in line is probably the best thing. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Okay, so I feel like we're at a good point where we can take a vote on the changes to sections 1943 all the way through 1951.
I think
Dr.
Dr.
Van has his hand raised again. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
I
Dr.
just, in an attempt to avoid confusion, in paragraph B, where you have LOTA,
Mhm.
just remember that's your association's initials
Yeah.
and name too.
So should we change it to OTA/L and the same above?
Well, LOTR is not your association's name or initials.
Right.
But in paragraph B, it clearly is Louisiana Occupational Therapy Association, and they go by LOTA. So, and we actually reference them in other parts of the rules as well.
Mhm.
So again, it's just, you don't want, I just, in an attempt to point out potential confusion, I just want you to remind you of that.
It's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, I said I've never seen it as a LOTA, I think because of our
Right.
association. So maybe in here,
Well, in a long time, I think, I know when early on, when I practiced with some OTAs, I did commonly see the LOTA. But I think now, like someone else had just said, most people call themselves CODA, or like nobody, it's been a long time since I've seen everyone actually use the LOTA without the C.
But in terms of what we should have in this document, even if it's not being commonly used.
Right.
Good point.
Right.
I agree.
And then even in terms of, and I don't want to open a can of worms, but just in terms of, this is the only state that I know of where we sign LOTR versus OTR/L. But I don't want to open that can of worms.
oh, if we change it here, should we change it up there? Or is that the can of worms you're talking about?
That's the can of worms I was talking about.
I don't think that's that big of a can of worms.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we can leave it like this, but up above, we can leave it as LOTR, just so it doesn't get confusion with LOTA, like Dr.
Right.
Mann suggested. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So Ingrid, between the one that's there and name, you may need a space. I'm not sure if that's why that's connecting. Yeah. Okay.
One of the CODAs that I work with, she does sign, I just looked it up, COTA -L, or
Gotcha.
whatever that one is.
So it's not LCTOA, but it's COTA/L.
Yes.
Okay, so we have completed, starting with section 1943. So I just want to cruise over that because I need a motion to accept the changes from sections 1943 to 1951.
On motion to changes.
Okay,
This is
One
Carolyn,
second.
my second.
thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay. There we go. All right, so the next section, we will actively stop there since we've done our hour. Will be the committee, and y'all have the copy of what's been done before. So remember, in green has already been voted on. However, it does not mean that it's not up for discussion and we can do a revote. So we have that section that would be at the next meeting, and then H would be into the continuing professional education. So trying to find, do we have any public comments on the rules and regs review and update, Dr. Van or Jacinta?
I have seen none, but I will double check. No, none yet for me, but let me check in the junk file just in case.
Okay,
No.
thank you.
None.
Okay, so moving on the agenda. I'll just flash back to mine. We have no new business. We do need to discuss, we have the NBC OT presentation at the next, at the November 11th one. However, I think that date's in question. And then we also need to discuss October 28th, just to make sure we have a quorum, because we have had a few people not indicate that they're not able to make it. So Dr. Van, do you have access to your calendar to look at the future dates or?
I'm pulling it up right now as we speak.
Okay, so the ones that we have temporarily, well, we have October 28th on there and we've already received the Zoom link. We have November 11th in question and then possibly December 2nd.
Okay, so October 28th, we got you on the schedule. And then you wanted to go what month?
November 11th.
November 11th is fine. It's a Friday, no problem.
Thought it
Okay,
was, isn't November 11th Veterans Day, which is a state holiday?
I knew there was something.
That's
Or
it. You're
something.
correct. It's
I
Veterans
knew
Day
there was
state
something.
holiday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's what it was, Darby. We couldn't remember why that one had a question mark. That was why.
okay.
So you want to do the 18th?
It would be either the 18th or the 4th.
The 4th is if we have a quorum and a meeting on October 28th, the 4th is awfully close to that, but we already have 3 members who cannot make the 28th. So we may want to actually push back and make sure that 28th is going to work for everybody.
Yeah, let's talk about the 28th. Can everybody pull up their calendars and let's have a discussion about the 28th to make sure?
This is I heard Carolyn, Kelly, and Kim have told me they cannot make it. I had not heard yet from Brenda or Glenn. Do you know if you all could make that one?
I can, I have it on my calendar.
You do, okay. And Glenn?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see anything. I
And
don't see
Amy,
anything
are
that
you
would
still a
get in the
maybe?
way.
Is Amy still on?
Yes, I'm still a maybe.
Still a maybe.
Okay.
Yes, I'll find out what time I have an event that day and let you know.
Okay. Because yeah, we're just barely, if Amy cannot make it, then we won't have a quorum. So, but we're not sure yet. But we'll guess we'll keep that for now. Maybe we should look at November 18th.
Okay.
That's clear on your calendar, Dr. Van, November 18th?
It's clear for here at the office.
Okay. All right, then.
You want to start at 10:30 like you normally do?
Anybody on the committee know right now that they cannot make that date?
It's open for me. That would work.
Works for me.
All right. Okay, well, we will ask Jacinta to do an invitation for November 18th.
Okay, and then did you want to talk about a December meeting or? So our goal was to get through, excuse me, our rules and regs. And we have sort of touched, we're on page 7. Some of them have already been sorted through, but it doesn't mean that we'll have, added changes, but
The December 2nd, Dr. Van, is that clear for you? Because
I think that's clear for our staff.
okay.
Oh, no, I apologize. Please
But I
forgive me.
thought,
I was about to say, I think you have a little,
I'm going to be somewhere else.
Okay.
I'm going to be unavailable.
on December 2nd.
Yeah, I promised
Okay.
my wife a cruise.
Oh, good for you.
So the 16th would be fine with me.
okay.
December 16th.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I'll send out like a doodle poll for the rest of the committee for November 18 and December 16 and make sure we'll have quorums. And then we'll get that scheduled just as ASAP.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ingrid. And then the only other question that Ingrid and I had is really for Dr. Van and Jacinta on our perhaps could even be for Tracy, that the public notification page does not have our recent minutes of the meetings. Is that something that we need to be doing, or?
No, we'll get
Would
those
we-
posted for you.
We post them.
They haven't actually been posted since June of 2020.
We'll fix that. If we
Awesome.
have them, we'll dig them all that we have and we'll post them on there.
Okay,
Thank you for pointing that out.
yeah, no problem. We just, Ingrid and I noticed it, and we weren't sure if that was our job or not, so to make sure.
I could do October 28th, but I would have to stop by 12.
Okay. Which may work, because if we don't have much on the agenda before, so. Is everybody okay with that we'll just work to 12? Thank you, Amy, for letting us know that.
Yeah, that's appreciated for sure.
Okay, if we don't have any other questions or comments, no public comment, I'm assuming, Dr. Van.
No public comment yet.
Okay, so we can adjourn the meeting at 12:29.
Do we have an executive session requirement today?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
No.
I checked junk mail and I checked inbox and we got no public comment.
Okay, great. So we will see everyone on October 28th.
And I want to say personally, thanks to Darby and Ingrid for doing all the work that they do to get this process continuing to move. They're doing yeoman's work and we should all appreciate it. And as soon as y'all finish, Pat and I will do what we need to do to make it back and get it back to you so that we can get it to the board as soon as we can get it there.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that's our goal, is to get through this. It's just a little bit of a laborious process, but just want to make sure everybody on the committee's comments and questions and concerns and clarifications are all included, because we're going to rely on everybody, like you said, when we go to the board, to help justify every little change that we make.
I think you have a great process and I really appreciate all the hard work you're doing.
No problem, Mom.
Thank you.
Takes a village. We appreciate every committee member, old and new.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks,